Hello, everyone. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at an article from CNN, from CNN Health, to be more precise, written by Deirdre McPhillips. It was published on February 26th and was updated same day. And I just want to show something here. When you look at the title, when will the U.S. reach herd immunity and what will it look like? Then you look over here, okay? This is a narrative that they're pushing parallel in the legacy media. Can vaccinated people still spread the coronavirus? Now, if you're saying yes, they can, and getting vaccinated or having been previously infected and having antibodies, all right, doesn't mean shit, which is what they're doing here. They're saying that it doesn't mean shit, okay? How can you then push at the same time that stories about herd immunity? Because basically what you're saying here is we're never going to have herd immunity because people can still get infected and they just might not get as sick. So how do you have herd immunity when you're saying, okay, that once people are vaccinated, all right, that doesn't mean that you're basically saying it doesn't mean shit. Because they can still get infected, they can still get sick, they can still supposedly transmit it, they can still do this, they can still do that. That means you're never going to have actual herd immunity. Which, you got to love how they keep jacking up the numbers on that, by the way. It was, almost every single disease, it was about 40% of the population. All right. Throughout history, when it came to this idea of herd immunity, about 40% of the population needs to have been infected or have some other way immunity was created, like through a vaccine or whatever. 45%. Now they're talking upwards of 95% in order for us to have herd immunity. That's asinine. Because if you have a large enough segment of the population that's immune, okay, that has the antibodies, whether it's through, one of these quote unquote vaccinations, which are, genetic manipulation, where they, manipulate your genetic material with the, on the note of RNA to get you to produce certain things, which is not a vaccine. A vaccine is a weakened or a dead version of a virus or, something along those lines, like, or some other, microbe disease type situation. But hey, what do I know? I'm just some average guy where they used to teach this back in the day in school. But now, we're supposed to ignore everything we were taught. We're supposed to be dumbed down, get the shot, idiots. But anyway, let's look what Deirdre had to say here. A year into in the COVID-19 pandemic, it appears that trends have finally shifted in a positive direction. New cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are dropping rapidly, and a supply of available vaccine is growing. Well, what's funny is the hospitalizations, deaths, and all that could also be dropping because we now have someone else in office, and they're counting things differently, but we're also ignoring that because they're now being a little less forgiving on what they call a COVID death. They're being a little less forgiving on what they call a COVID infection. Because they were calling the flu COVID and all this other shit when people were dying of the flu during flu season. So, hey, whatever. Let's just ignore that as a factor, huh? The country could be well on its way to herd immunity, the point at which enough people are protected against a disease that it cannot spread through the population. Well, why would it matter when you have a 95 to 99.99% recovery rate? Why would it matter on herd immunity? That makes absolutely no sense. I mean, because that 95% are really old, above the average life expectancy, okay? And they pretty much had comorbidities, every single one of them. The ones that 5%. But let's just ignore that. Oh, God. But it may take months to get there, and nobody expects it will feel like an overnight return to our lives before the pandemic. Herd immunity threshold is likely months away. Well, how convenient. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that more than 83 million people in the United States had COVID-19 by the end of 2020, putting the nation about a third of the way to herd immunity, the point at which enough people are protected against the disease so that it cannot spread through the population. If the pace of vaccinations continues at the current rate, the country could approach herd immunity through a combination of natural immunity and vaccination around June. Now, here's their little chart, okay? You have immunity through vaccine only, which is this lower one here. You have immunity through vaccines and reported cases, which is this one right here. Then you have immunity through vaccines, reported cases, and estimated cases. Okay. Now, if you look, because most people, this is a disease so deadly, most people have to get tested to find out that they're, positive, that they've got it. All right. So if we go by this, they're talking June, and they're talking about here. Okay. A little over 60% for herd immunity. If they're talking the immunity through vaccines and reported cases, they're talking, a higher percentage, but then they're talking with this one here, they don't even have it on the bottom. And they're saying 65% of the population is willing to get a vaccine with the bottom one, which is the one there, immunity through vaccines only. But anyway, more than 66 million shots have been administered, according to the latest federal data, with nearly 80% of the U.S. population fully vaccinated. Promises from manufacturers indicate that the U.S. should have enough vaccine supply to cover everyone by June. More than a quarter of the population may already have natural immunity after previous infection. And the numbers may be much higher than official counts show. Yes, because see, if you go and you take the actual numbers, their death rates go in the toilet. And when their death rates go in the toilet, they look like idiots. So they don't want to look at the actual infection rates because this disease is so deadly, most people needed to get a test to find out they even had the damn thing. But hey, whatever. However, some new variants threaten progress. Oh, of course they will, because they'll always have a new variant around the corner so they can put us in perpetual lockdown. That's the plan. But anyway, however, some new variants are in progress, potentially lessening protection offered by vaccines and skirting some degree of natural immunity. Vaccine hesitancy may also create some limitations. But here's the thing. They're trying to make it sound like, well, if you don't have natural immunity is the best immunity that you can feasibly have. They don't like to say this, but it's the truth. So they're trying to play it down. Well, natural immunity, you might not. Well, natural immunity, your body's naturally fighting it off as opposed to, some weakened or with an actual vaccination, some weakened or dead strain of the virus. You've actually dealt with the virus itself. Okay. Or, other disease-causing microbes. Okay, because you can build immunity to, say, amoebic infections and stuff like that as well. But on this case, we're talking about viruses and such. All right, so basically, they don't like that. They want you to get your immunity from a lab. They want it to be manufactured. And they don't want to talk about that. And they want to keep this this idea of new strains around the corner being, able to side skirt immunity, whether it's produced by what they're calling vaccines or through natural infection. They want to avoid that whole situation because they need to have that idea of new strains around the corner. And if you've been exposed to one and you're pretty resilient against the others that are showing up, they can't exactly do that. So vaccine hesitancy may also create some limitations. So, because I don't want to get a vaccine because it's got for a disease, it's got a 95 to 99.99% recovery rate. That's me being vaccine hesitant. Fuck you. It's called common freaking sense, buddy. Or sorry, Deidre. So you're a woman. Don't want to upset you by calling you buddy. To understand how these factors may play into the future timeline of the pandemic, CNN spoke with 5 experts. Dr. Arturo Casadevall, chair of molecular microbiology and immunology at Johns Hopkins University. Justin Lessler, associate professor of epidemiology. Wow, I can't believe I just got tongue-tied on that. Epidemiology at Johns Hopkins University. Jessica Malati Riviera, science communications lead at the COVID tracking project. Oh, so she's an expert because she's the science communications lead at the COVID tracking project? Okay, I'll believe that one. Dr. Anish Mehta of the Emory Vaccine Center and Dr. Christopher Murray, director of the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation. It doesn't sound like all of those are exactly experts, but whatever. Their responses have been edited below for length and clarity. Of course they were. There is still so much to learn about COVID-19, but if you had to put a number on it, what level of population protection is required to reach herd immunity against COVID-19? So this is what Casadevall Duvall had to say. I'm in the 65 to 80% range. When traditionally, and I've said this before, traditionally, all you needed was 40 to 45%. They keep moving this number because they want to see how far they can push people into compliance. But anyway, we all expect that this virus is not different from other viruses and that we will reach a point that a sufficient number of people are immune so that the virus cannot jump anymore. It reaches a point that there are so few hosts, so few people that it can jump to, that the epidemic crashes. The number of cases is the threat. And in the declining curve, we see that the number of people it can jump to is dropping. Well, here's the thing. Here you are saying this, but every other disease has traditionally been 40 to 45%. Is what you need for herd immunity. Lessler, community immunity is a continuum. As more immunity builds, the disease becomes easier to control. It actually crashes like she's talking about, but whatever. Right now, control measures in place, such as masking and limiting capacity, are offering some protection, which is contributing to the drop. No, it isn't. This has been proven complete bullshit. Florida proved this is bullshit. Okay, but here he is pushing this lie that masking and limiting capacity are offering some protection, which is contributing to the drop in cases. That's a complete fucking lie because Florida didn't do this shit. California and New York did, that he's talking about. And Florida fared better, and they've got old people up the friggin' wazoo. This is how fake news and how, ignorant these, this is how fake news CNN is and how ignorant these supposed experts are. All these studies have shown that this shit that they're talking about, that he's talking about, did not work, did not contribute. If it did, it was negligible. But this asshole is so smug and high on his own farts that he thinks that he can sell this. But to get to the magic number where you can drop most of those measures and not worry about large outbreaks, there will still be some. It's somewhere between 2/3 and 80%. But additional community immunity gives real benefits even right at the threshold. Now here's the thing. So he's admitting here, okay? Lessler's admitting here that we're never going to go back to normal. All right? Once we reach herd immunity, we're still going to have some measures in place. Even once we're at a point where it cannot spread through the population. See, we'll get rid of most measures, but we won't get rid of all. That should tell you something right there, that this has nothing to do, okay, with flattening the curve, getting back to normal, or anything like that. This is about top-down control. They've now got control. They've now got authority. You think someone like Lessler's going to give that up when he's got the ear of politicians? Of course not. So Malat Riviera, we really need to be vaccinating at least 70% of the population. Get bent. For a 95 to 99% survival rate, piss off. That seems potentially possible by the end of the year if there are no significant bottlenecks in production or delivery. Meta, I've seen estimates as low as 65% and as high as 95%. What I'd really like to make sure is we get at least 75%. Murray, respiratory viruses are very seasonal, so the level of immunity required in the summer is much lower than in the winter. That makes absolutely no fucking sense, but whatever. COVID is less dramatically seasonal than other respiratory viruses, but as we've learned, it still is. I would give a summer herd immunity threshold of 65 and for winter 85. That's complete horseshit. That's like hedging your bets, okay? Herd immunity is herd immunity is herd immunity. Once you've reached herd immunity, okay, the disease cannot survive in the general population as a rule. They really think people are stupid. Okay, when you say, well, there's a difference between summer herd immunity and winter herd immunity. That's retarded. That's like IQ of 50 coming up with an excuse for why we need so many people here. These people are supposedly experts, and this guy's talking like he's got an IQ of 50 with that one. Seriously. Individuals who have already had COVID-19 may have some natural immunity after infection. Can we count those people toward herd immunity? Now, this is what I love. May have. No, they definitely have. That's how biology works, okay? Your body fights off a disease, okay, and you build immunity towards it. But see, they don't want that because they're trying to push this idea that even if you've had it, all right, you should be forced to take the vaccination. But that's something that a lot of people are going to be like, wait a minute. They used to teach us in biology that when you get the disease, naturally you're protected. Oh, no, ignore that. You need the shot. I mean, that's what they're trying to do here. But anyway, so let's see what Casadevall had to say. Yes, the number of people known to have reinfection is very low. There have definitely been some cases, and they have been documented. But despite all this, the virus is still floating around. People are not getting sick again, and to me that's really encouraging. Yes, and the reinfection rate is like less than 1%. But let's just ignore that. Yes, some have been reinfected. Yes, less than 1%. Lessler, in the short term, over the next 6 months or so, I would count everybody who's been infected and most people who have been vaccinated as immune. There are some cases of reinfection, but they're mostly among people who had a pretty mild disease in the first place, disease in the first infection. Well, here's the thing. Less than 1%. It might be 1% at this point. Because that small of a percentage had reinfection and was documented as such and had it even, had it even milder. Okay, we need to worry about this? Oh my God, these people are retarded. They actually think this stuff makes sense. They actually think they can sell this shit to the general public. This is how stupid they think you and I are. And they're showing how stupid they actually are. So Melody Riviera, no, herd immunity can only be discussed in the context of mass vaccination. I'm on the more conservative side and very hesitant to claim that natural immunity is causing any meaningful difference in these numbers. No, you're not a fucking conservative. When you're pushing that shit, you are a lefty shitbag. Don't call yourself a conservative, okay? Because you're not. You're not being conservative. When you are saying that everyone needs to be vaccinated, all right, which is basically what you're doing here, okay? Then you're not remotely conservative. You're on the left side pushing the shit that everyone needs to take this experimental vaccine. You're not conservative. Nice try. Get bent. Just saying. I mean, because this is, when you're hesitant to claim that natural immunity is causing a meaningful difference in these numbers, you are full of shit. You know that it is. But for whatever reason, you're pushing that everyone get the jab because you're a scumbag. So let's see what Metta had to say. Maybe. The U.S. has had many infections, but they've been spread out over time. It's hard to know exactly how many people have been affected, and it appears that certain people lose their immunity sometime after infection. The goal should be to protect the population through vaccination. But here's the thing. Whether you take the vaccination or you get the disease naturally, your immunity is going to eventually disappear if that's what you're claiming, you dumb shit. So what's the point of getting vaccinated? That ain't going to do shit. I mean, this is ridiculous. They seriously, they get some people here that really want to see people get the jab. Now, let's see what Murray had to say. So, Murray, I normally would say yes, but some evidence around the variant first discovered in South Africa brings that into question. Well, of course it does. You know, this new variant, that means so we can't trust natural immunity. We need the vaccines, all this other shit. Okay. Also, anything we know about waning natural immunity is purely speculative. Okay, well, the same principle would actually hold to vaccination, and 9 times out of 10, vaccines don't protect you nearly as well as natural immunity. That is a scientific fact, but they want everyone to get a fucking jab. Think, people. Why are they pushing this, and why are they trying to say natural immunity, which has been shown to be far superior to that brought on by actual vaccines, not by RNA-altering substances, all right? Why are they trying to say that natural immunity, which is supposed to be better, which has been proven to be better, ain't shit? Put 2 and 2 together and you'll get 4, okay? But the left wants you to get 5 because they don't want you to be able to add these things up and figure shit out for yourself. New variants potentially threaten levels of protection, both in terms of vaccine efficacy and possible reinfection. How much does this threat cut into the measures of progress to herd immunity? Casadevall. Variants are the big threat on the horizon. They have the potential to derail things, but I stress potential. We know variants are out there, but there's still very few cases of documented reinfection. What that suggests to me is that the variant is not evading immune defenses. The most encouraging thing to me is how rapidly that curve is coming down. It gives me hope that we're going to crash the curve before variants become a threat. Well, how convenient the curve all of a sudden, because of how they're changing recording numbers and shit, is dropping all of a sudden. Now the creepy sleepy Uncle Joe's in office. How fucking convenient about that one. Let's just ignore that, though. Okay, anyway, Lessler. There are some variants that appear to be escaping that immunity and changing the equation. Oh, bullshit. Name one. In a completely susceptible population, the average person with the original strain would spread the virus to 3 people. So you need 2 people to be immune to start decreasing the spread. But with some variants, the average person may spread the disease to around 5 people. So you need 4 people to be immune to cut the spread. How convenient. You gotta love how they keep moving the fucking goalposts with this shit. Malati Riviera. The conversation around variants really needs to be around preventing infection. If we keep transmission low, we can keep variants low. As the vaccines roll out, one of the many reasons we're still wearing masks and continue to practice mitigation strategies is to buy ourselves time. Bullshit, because multiple studies like the one in Denmark show that the masks really don't do shit. The fact that Florida isn't mandating masks and all that, and they have better numbers than California, they have better numbers than New York, and they have a large old person population shows you're full of shit. But hey, whatever, get bent. Because you ain't going to look at that actual fact there. You're not going to look at anything like that because you don't want to, because you're pushing a narrative, because you want to matter. This is the only way people like you can matter. So, Meta. We think vaccines will provide good immunity to most variants out there, but there are some, particularly the variant first identified in South Africa, that appears to have the ability to get around and may alter our level of protection. That's why it's so important to vaccinate as quickly as we can. But wait a minute, here's the thing. If you're vaccinating, natural immunity is better. That's a documented fact that throughout history, throughout scientific history, that your natural immunity is going to be better than one brought on by vaccines. Just saying. Okay, you're trying to act like the natural immunity, which is stronger, is at risk, of not being able to stop the South African virus. But these untested vaccines, a term I'm using very loosely here, solve the problem. That's complete horseshit. That is complete and total horseshit. I mean, that's as quickly as we can. The quicker we get higher levels of protection in our community, the chances for new variants to spread and develop diminishes. Well, natural immunity will do that better. But hey, whatever. Let's see what Murray had to say. There isn't a clear route to herd immunity if those variants spread. And it's a very tricky business trying to predict at what pace they'll spread. But cases are coming down quickly, perhaps even more than we expected. Some surveys still show significant amounts of vaccine hesitancy. How will this affect their path to herd immunity? This is what's funny is because people aren't taking the vaccine. Oh, no. 95 to 99% survival rate. People know this. They don't want to get the vaccine. So they're going to fearmonger here. Casa Duvall. The number of cases is the threat, and a lot depends on what the vaccine uptake is by next year. The more cases you have, the more virus replication, and the more likelihood that a person can be infected. If we keep going the way we are and crash the curve, the likelihood of a bad scenario is reduced. Well, how convenient. So we need to keep vaccinating people even though they don't want to get it. Malata Riviera. Anti-vax people are a loud minority. Bullshit. This isn't about anti-vax. This is how they're trying to frame it. Because people who don't want to take experimental gene therapy, okay, because that's what this is, all right, they're anti-vaxxers. Automatically. That's how they try to shut down people. But anyway, they don't represent a large group of people in this country. Oh, really? So I guess the majority of healthcare workers are anti-vaxxers, because the majority of healthcare workers, and I actually got suspended from YouTube for saying this, okay, didn't want to get the vaccine. It was reported by the legacy media, actually one of their trusted news sources. It was reported by them, and I actually got removed for pointing that out, for reporting on that article. So I guess all those healthcare workers are anti-vax then, according to this idiot. But anyway, so in this a large group of people, they don't represent a large group of people in this country, and I don't think they'll have a tremendous victory when it comes to things like herd immunity. Usually, the impediment to people not taking a vaccine is understanding, but we've had major wins with campaigns to address this bullshit. People aren't taking it. You keep campaigning for people to take it, and it ain't working. The only people who are taking it are the fucking sheep. Meta. It's really understandable why some people in our community may have hesitation around the vaccine. What we need to do is continue to do a good job caring for them and being role models, not only by sharing knowledge and taking the vaccine ourselves, but continuing to take precautionary measures such as wearing a mask and practicing good hand hygiene. So basically, what are you going to be doing? Like that doctor who claimed he was getting the vaccine and faked it in front of everyone? What? Is that what you're going to do? Because again, healthcare workers don't want to take this. Legacy Media, I believe it was the Associated Press, reported that. I could be wrong. You can go on to my All Tech channels, like on BitChute and Odyssey, and find the video. Because it didn't get removed there, obviously. It was a Legacy Media trusted news source, and YouTube gave me a suspension for it. 2 week suspension. I couldn't upload, I couldn't do shit. Because it doesn't fit this narrative. And see what Murray had to say. If we can move from 25% of the population not being vaccinated to 10, that really boosts herd immunity way up. Even if variants aren't as bad as we fear, it's still going to be pretty close, and vaccinating over the tipping point will make a huge difference. Well, here's the thing. Again, 95 to 99% survival rate. Why do we need to have this all going on for something that has a better survival rate than the flu? Please explain that one. Anyway, what's the bottom line? Generally, what can we expect? When can we expect a return to normal? Now, this is what's funny is they don't want us to go back to normal because then they don't matter anymore. So let's see what Casadevall had to say. No one in this world can tell you what percent of protection is needed or what date it will happen by. My gut is positive, and I do think 2021 is going to be a better year than 2020. Assuming we don't have a variant that forces new lockdowns, I think the second half of this year will look different. We may lift restrictions in the fall, or maybe a little earlier if the rapid decline continues and the curve stays down. See, they don't want to lock us down again. Bullshit. Okay, new variant, they'll lock us down again. Bullshit, you don't want to. All right? And they're talking about not removing the whole thing and going back to actual normal here. She didn't say anything. Casadevall didn't say anything about that. Okay, there was kind of like a dancing around the subject going on, but there was no definitive there. Let's see what Lessler had to say. When we get very, very low numbers of new cases, that's going to be a sign that things can be fine, and we can step back control measures. We should do so slowly and deliberately and watch for any resurgence. Some of this comes down to deciding what is normal, because the fact of the matter is we need to accept the fact that we'll be living with this virus forever. It will come back again and again like the flu, but that doesn't mean that we'll always be the scourge of it is now. Well, first off, the coronavirus itself is basically the common fucking cold. It is one of the viruses that causes the common friggin' cold. They don't want to admit that, though, number one. Number two, you notice how he's saying that we get very low numbers and we can roll things back, control measures back. We should do it slowly and deliberately in case there's a resurgence, okay? And it should come and basically says, well, we should decide what is normal. Normal is going back to what everything was before this point, okay? You little weasel shipwreck waste of space. That would be normal, going back to how things were before the coronavirus. That's normal. See, they don't want us to go back to normal because, see, these people, they've gained relevance, okay? They're now getting attention, and they're all attention whores, okay? They now matter. So that's why Lessler doesn't want to walk shit back and go back to actual normal. Okay, and it's like, we'll have this again like the flu. Okay, we didn't shut down the world after the Spanish flu because the flu kept coming back. Why should we do that for what amounts to the common fucking cold? And I mean, I'm not saying it is, but the coronavirus causes, in most cases, the common cold. This particular strain is a little bit different. But for the most part, coronavirus is one of the viruses that causes the common friggin' cold. So we should upend the world and destroy what normalcy we've known for God only knows how long, for how many decades, for how long, with the fact of freedom and everything else, and never locking this country down or anything like that. We should just cast that aside because of a fucking virus that amounts to the common cold. Now, I'm saying it's more serious than the common cold. But it's the same exact viral makeup. It's a coronavirus. Coronavirus is one of the viruses that causes the common cold. We're going to lock the world down for that when we didn't do that for the flu or anything else like that. Okay, piss off, buddy. Lessler's a piece of shit. All right, let's see what Melody Riviera said. Vaccinating 70% of the population is going to be an absolute game changer for us in terms of getting back to what we could do similar to pre-COVID days. See, not going back to normal. What we could do similar to pre-COVID days. Not going back to those days. Okay, I'm optimistic that this fall is going to look very different and hope that means things like travel and mask-free socializing with loved ones. We're on the road to getting there if we keep the trends down. Well, first off, you should be able to mask-free fucking hang out with your family when there's a 95 to 99% survival rate. Most people are doing that. But hey, whatever. Oh, piece of shit. Let's see what Meta had to say. Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. When everyone in the family comes together at my mother's house, my hope, both personally and professionally, is that it happens before Thanksgiving. Well, here's the thing. People went to other people's houses during Thanksgiving. They said it was going to be super spreader. And they had a couple instances that they turned from little tiny molehills into mountains. okay, to push their shit. Super spreader shit didn't happen. Sturgis, super spreader shit didn't happen. Okay, with Bike Week. They're losing the narrative. They're losing at this. Yet they keep managing to push things further and further. Wake up, people. Let's see what Murray had to say. I really do think it will be a quiet summer, but whether it will come back is an open question. That we don't know the answer until maybe December. Two powerful forces, seasonality and the scale of vaccination, combined are going to bring things down pretty steadily, but we have to wait and see. Yes, for something that has a 95 to 99% survival rate, okay, something that when it came to any other disease would have been traditionally a 40 to 45%, in fact, of having 40 to 45% of the population infected would be herd immunity, which would lead to herd immunity. Stuff like that is not good enough. It's not good enough for this. They keep changing standards. They keep fucking moving the goalpost. I mean, these people, it's clear. This is not about the virus anymore. This is not about human health and safety or anything like that. Because when you have 95 to 99% survival rate, okay, you have the economy and getting destroyed, and people are unable to pay their bills and survive, and that's the survival rate. And you're saying that only big box companies like Walmart and Best Buy, okay, and Home Depot and Lowe's and Amazon and all these other large companies can stay open, but mom and pop has to shut down when they're the biggest employers in the country as a whole? Yeah, this has nothing to do with protecting people. This has nothing to do with safety. This has nothing to do with a virus. This has to do with the fact of, they're trying to exploit it for the Great Reset. That's what's going on here. All right, and these people are either dumbed down dipshits or they're willing pawns because they can go and they can matter, whereas they wouldn't matter otherwise. Because do you think these people would be getting phone calls or any attention if it wasn't for the coronavirus and being called fucking experts at this point? Of course not. They'd be sitting there in academia or some other place with their thumb up their ass going, I really wish I mattered. And guess what? Now they do. You know what? We need to make it so they don't matter anymore. Because these people, all right, are looking at the fact of personal gain on this shit. They're not looking at what's best for the nation or the people or anything like that. That's why they're talking out their ass with this shit. Anyway, I've covered this well enough. Yeah, I'm leaving things here.
If you liked this video, depending on where you are watching it, please give it an upvote or thumbs up. If you want to know when new content of mine hits the internet, don't forget to subscribe to one or more of my social media or video accounts listed here. Also, with YouTube, don't forget to ring that bell. You can find all of my video content on both BitChute and YouTube. This may not be the case with other places I upload to, but I will try to minimize this happening. You are always welcome to interact with me at any of these sites on the list, so feel free to do so. If you have anything you want me to cover in a video, when it comes to news or current events, send it right along to me. I will try to do my best to cover it. As always, thank you for watching.